Hi guys, so I am trying out this new cell phone holder here that was given to me graciously by one of my colleagues at the hospital where I work. I actually kind of like it because it elevates my phone about 2 inches from where I normally place it when I do my live videos. So what y'all think? The difference, I guess, is that it really does capture like waist up when I normally put it down on the surface. Without this holder, you guys get to see my thighs, my thick thighs. So that's like the main difference that I noticed. This is my first time using it. It looks like you guys get to see more of my ceiling, but it's the only difference I noticed. How are you guys doing? Peace, peace, peace. I should have ordered some food before I went live, yo. I might go ahead and order some food now. How about that? Because, I'm getting hungry. I just got home, y'all. I just got home from a very long, interesting day at work. I actually got to supervise 2 court hearings that 2 of my patients were a part of today, so that was interesting to determine recommitment. It's pretty interesting. Some forensic psychology work. I didn't testify, but I got to witness it. My supervisor did. She's a forensic psychologist. So I just might be following in her footsteps. We shall see. It's been a really eventful week. Yesterday I actually got a chance. Oh, don't tell me my freaking thing is dead, yo. Come on. Come on. Hold on. It feels like I don't get to go live as often as I used to. Just all discombobulated, yo. Hold on, guys. See my light. See my light went out. But yeah, I noticed I don't go live as often because I'm devoting a lot of energy and time into work. So that's a good thing, though. What the fuck? I'm gonna talk to you guys about my perspective on single life versus married life. As soon as I get this lighting situation fixed. Alright. I got my laptop. I'm gonna multitask here in this video. I'm actually about to order me some dinner. So yesterday I actually got a chance to see this new movie that is slated for release at the end of this year. I think it's coming out in fall. It's called Till, based on true story of Emmett Till. Many of you guys have actually seen the grotesque pictures of the aftermath of his killing, wrongful death. It was a shame, but I went to the screening of that movie yesterday, and it was interesting. What was more interesting was the audience reaction to the film. I noticed, right? And it was a packed theater, y'all. I saw it at Lincoln Center, AMC. It was a packed theater. It wasn't no vacant seats in there. And let's see, what do I want to eat, y'all? And there was a good percentage of men in there too, right? I noticed, like, and given that the movie is like very emotionally provocative and riveting, we're talking about an innocent. You guys can't see. Freaking password. Given that the story is based on like a young boy, African American child being wrongfully killed. It's like at the hands of a race soldier. And this story took place back in the 50s, I think it was. And I'm just surveying like the audience, just get an idea of like who's there. And I noticed like there's a black man sitting next to me. And sadly, like, the movie was good, right? But like I said, I was more like touched by like people's reaction. It was a certain level of energy in the room. And moments into the movie, right? The movie started, like maybe 5 minutes into the movie, people were already having like visceral reactions. And you can hear like the groans, right? And the sighs and the sniffles. It was people crying, It was scenes that actually provoked tears. And you can like hear the pain in the sniffles and like people crying. You can hear like the pain. And the thing about movies, right? The thing about film is that yes, what's happening in the story is like is noteworthy, right? It's something that is going to elicit, given the story that we're talking about here, like Emmett Till, is going to elicit that tearful reaction. But on top of that, it made me wonder, right? Because not everybody cried. Not everybody had the same reaction. So some people felt more touched by the film than other people, especially different scenes. And I'm like I'm very mindful of my own personal reaction to different scenes in the film. I didn't cry. I did not cry. And I'm like, interesting. There are men around me, black men, of course, crying. And granted, the film is based on a male child. Do I want some seafood? What the fuck do I want, y'all? Let me see. So it makes sense why it would like strike the nerve of a lot of black men in the audience, given that the main character, in the film and who the story was based on is a black young kid, black young male. And is layered with, I think, the reaction that was shown, right, like in the audience from men, factored into that reaction was their own personal experience, right? Being in touch with the reality of being a black man in this society. So I'm not going to say too much, but I was just like, I was really moved by that. And then it made some self-reflection, because I'm like, okay, I felt a connection to what was happening in the movie, but not to the extent of crying. And it made me think about empathy. And it made me think about a prior supervisor of mine that I had back in LA who called a meeting. I wouldn't say she called the meeting, right? Because she basically created this meeting, initiated a meeting, which she wasn't a part of, by the way. But my school ended up having a meeting with me, of course, concerning my ability to empathize with clients, like as if like I don't have any empathy. And I'm just like, what? I don't have any empathy? That hurt. That hurt deeply, yo. It pierced my freaking soul. For someone, especially someone that I looked up to at the time anyway, another black female psychologist, to have that depiction of me, right? And not only that, I mean, it's one thing that for her to have that depiction of me, right? And if she had expressed that directly to me as a supervisor. And this is when I was working towards my doctoral studies out in Los Angeles. But it's another thing to share that depiction with other people who obviously have a significant role in my training as a psychologist and are essentially gatekeepers, right, to the profession. To say such a thing, to depict me in such light, I'm like, what the fuck? Which I mean, I knew it wasn't true, right? I knew that. I'm trying to figure out. I'm looking through like the things I've ordered. I'm just like, yo, I order the same shit over and over and over and over again. But I'm like, I know that statement wasn't true that she made about me. It hurt, you know what I'm saying, more than anything. But it also, like, of course, like, looking back, led me to think deeply about empathy. I'm going way back when I was fucking in Jackson. It was like way back, yo. This is freaking August 29. Okay. And I'm just like, I know I have empathy. I know I have empathy because I'm able to feel what other people feel very deeply. Like, I'm very perceptive of my environment and of other people's emotions. And I've talked about this before, of course, right? But my thing is this. It's like, is it an expectation for a clinician to actually feel what a client is feeling, right? That's really the definition of empathy. And I actually brought this to my professor's attention after this whole thing came to question about my ability or lack thereof to empathize with patients, clients, that was raised by my supervisor. I had to bring this to my professor's attention. He said, you know what? He mentioned a very prominent psychologist, one of like the grandfathers of psychology. He said, you know what? He actually would agree with you and disagree with your former supervisor, because really, and this is like a lot of early psychologists, right, that actually played a major role in laying the foundation for the study of psychology, and other schools of thought kind of built upon these early psychologists. I'm talking about like Freudian, and to that effect, my professor said that it's actually could work in the best interest of the patient, the client, work in their favor for you to not like feel what they're feeling, right? I mean, that you can recognize is one thing to be able to identify a feeling, and it's another thing to actually feel it, right? Like, you want to maintain a degree of neutrality when you're working with patients. And so that speaks to my ability to be able to do that, right? But yeah, it made me reflect, like, even yesterday when I'm sitting in the theater, I'm like, I wasn't crying. I didn't really feel anything at all. I didn't feel anything. If anything, I was looking like I was watching the film from more of an objective standpoint. I didn't identify with any of the characters in the film per se. Well, though the emotion that was conveyed by his mother, Emmett Till's mother, I felt that, like, cause they did a lot of close-ups of her face, which I like. I appreciate the close-ups. It was like a lot of them, starting from the beginning all the way throughout the entire movie and through the end. So I can definitely appreciate that. Do I just want to get me a burrito? What the hell do I want? And so with that, the expressions that like his mother was displaying, I could relate to that, and I heard in her voice like the pain, so I can definitely relate to that. So in terms of empathy, I would have to. I know I'm kind of off, right? But you guys know I like to I talk about various things, you know. So the title, yes, it says one thing, but I kind of include various things in my videos. Unscripted, freestyle, free flowing. That's just me. You watch it, you like it. If you don't, then toodaloo. I can care less. But it speaks to the fact that I think we all, right, and it made me do some even deeper analysis, like when my supervisor had accused me of lacking empathy, right? Just feel like that's like an accusation. It's like a stamp, a negative stamp placed on a person's identity and their fucking career trajectory, right? It's just like, what the hell? And it's important because that's having empathy is said to be one of the important change factors, right? Factors to change is an important agent to change when working with patients and psychotherapy. So yeah, I definitely was offended and hurt by that. I don't want no freaking waffle, but I think I might do this fish and grits though. Yes, that fish and grits looking real good. Whiting. But I might have to do the combo. So it made me think deeply, and I was thinking like, okay, I think empathy is relative, right? Like a person can have empathy for certain people or things, but not have, like, it ranges on a spectrum, right? It's not whether or not a person is empathetic or not, right? To say, oh, you lack empathy, you don't have empathy. I think that is a thoughtless statement, right? With little insight into what empathy really is and how it is on a spectrum. It's not a black or white issue as to whether or not a person has it or they don't, right? I think people have degrees of empathy for certain things, and that can be dependent on many things, right? Their experience in life, their experiences in life, their perception of that thing, like how they identify. Like I just gave an example earlier, like as I was watching a film, I think I identified more with the mother, right? So I think in my identification with the mother, my degree of empathy was a reflection of that, right? I felt more empathy for what she felt, probably more so than her son, right, dying. And I think it goes without saying, like, this is not just me, but this is like people in general. There are things that I have no empathy for. And I've made that very clear, like in my videos, you know. There are certain types of men. I just don't have any empathy. I can care less. I don't feel anything, right? Motherfuckers can be fucking on their last breath and I don't feel anything. Meanwhile, I can see a woman who just came out of a fucking long marriage and went through a lot of shit, and I can have much empathy for her, or even a dog, you know. So it varies. Not to say I don't have empathy for men, I do. I think it just depends. Who is this man? Alright, what is he made of? Alright, I'm looking for a combo because I do want side and I want fish, fish and... Alright, I might have to do it this way. Let's see. Because I don't have time to go through all this. I'm hungry. And I do want sides. I'm going to have to just get the sides separately. Add cheese. No, I don't want cheese. But, it's like a lot I can say about empathy and relationships. But I was thinking about, like, this whole idea of getting married or being partnered. And it's like, yo, what's the big rush, right? Especially when you've been single for so long, people, like, hype up that shit. What size do I want? Collard greens? Man, I get mac and cheese so much, I think I might switch it up with collard greens and candy yams. And maybe some dessert on the side. I'm going to get into it, you guys. I'm going to get into it, okay? I do have a lot to share, given that I don't go live, like, as frequently as I used to, especially when I had first moved back to New York, and, like, I was, like, on a hiatus from working, like, seeing patients. I had a lot of time on my hands, and so, yo, their desserts is $7? Nah, I'm good. I don't want no dessert. Alright, let's see. I think I'm gonna place my order. Yeah, because I got yams. Yams are, like, dessert. Alright. So, yeah, it's like I don't go live that often. And especially, like, with the nature of my work. I just like to focus more on work now. And use my off time just to, like, relax. I'm gonna fuck these grits up, y'all. Alright. Tip, $5. I don't think I'm gonna put a $5 tip. Let's see. Especially when they charge a delivery fee of $2.99 anyway. Hell no. Now I'm boo-boo. Hold on. Okay. Today was a good day, though. Even though I was in court for most of the day. And each fucking court proceeding was like 2 hours long, yo. How the hell could that be? Alright. Delivery 7:14. Okay, let's get into this. So it's like, okay, yeah, so like I don't really go live that often. So there's a lot of things that have happened or are happening, and of course I don't update you guys on everything. Like yesterday I went to the movie screening, and I had an interesting conversation, which kind of prompted the title of this video, like this topic discussion on married life versus single life, where I was talking to this guy on this dating app, and I've like been on dating app for a while now. People ask me like, how long you been on this app? I feel like it's redundant, right? Because I like to get to know people, and I feel like even if we don't meet face to face, I enjoy conversation. Like I just like talking to people and getting to know people. You learn a lot, and you get a feel of what's out there, right? And the mindset of people. So this guy, like, he's actually from Pennsylvania. We're living in Pennsylvania, but I think from New Jersey. Very attractive, yo. This motherfucker fine as shit. Fine as hell. Got the beard gang and all of that, right? And he actually had kids. But I'm like, okay, I think I can work with that because his kids are older. I think one kid was like an adult. The other one was like a teenager, right? And I like that he presents well, right? That goes a long way when men like present themselves in a decent way, like physically attractive, right? Well kept, clean cut, even though he got the beard gang and all of that. You can tell he take care of himself, right? And not only that, he presents well in terms of communication wise. Just we was vibing. He talking all the right shit. Just he's speaking my language. You know what I'm saying? You know I'm Pan African, pro black. He's speaking my language. He's saying all the right thing, and I ain't even saying like in terms of trying to butter me up, not like that, but just on the same frequency. We vibing, conversation going smoothly, right? And then he leave a few voice messages. We hadn't exchanged like our personal contact info, but on the dating app, you're able to like leave voice messages, and so like I hearing this voice, I'm like, right? And then he lives alone. He just seemed like he got like all his shit, right? Like my type, alpha male type. But he, you know what he fucked up? He goes and he brings up the topic of just randomly asking me, right? What type of wedding would I like? And I thought it was an innocent question, so I answered it. He was like, what kind of theme? He's like, what kind of theme and location? And so I said, well, the theme clearly would be African centered. Hello, can't you tell? Like, that's my style, right? African centered. And I said the location, I think like in the tropics. And then he told me about his previous marriage, because I wanted to know, because he told me he had been previously married, which a child resulted from that marriage. And I think that was his oldest child, right? His girl. And I'm like, okay, we talking about that, which I wasn't too thrilled in jumping and talking about marriage, but it's interesting to see people's perspectives. So I'm like, all right, just an innocent conversation. Then he goes and he's like, yeah, my marriage, it was African themed, but it was like, you know, local or whatever right now, like in the tropics. And I was curious to see, like, okay, well, what happened to you and your wife? Like, why did y'all divorce? And you know my biggest pet peeve, like, I feel like these dudes, especially the conscious, right? They're woke. When I say woke, like, they have a contextual understanding of what's happening socio-politically in our society, right? Especially when it comes to race politics. They're vibing. They have the ear to the political streets. But they're not too woke, right? Because also to be woke, you have to be self-aware. It's one thing to know, okay, contextually what's happening, right? On a macro level in our society. It's another thing to really be in tune with thyself, right? And really be working towards self-improvement. I think the two are inseparable, right? You can sit up here and point fingers at the system all day and be aware of what's happening in a contextual level and the different layers that impact one on an individual level, right, within our society. But if you don't take ownership for anything, to me, that's unattractive. And in that same vein, when it comes to speaking about past relationships one has had with previous partners, that also to me is a turnoff when men do that, right? So I could get an idea, and this is how I'll screen a lot of person a man is just by how they answer the questions that I'm asking, right, in the getting to know phase, right? And this is before we even make it from talking on the dating app to having a conversation over the phone or even in person for that matter. You know, just asking about their past relationship. Why didn't it work? And more often than not, you know what men say? Like they point fingers. Oh, she this, she that, she was toxic, and all these complaints about her. No insight about themselves. And we know it takes two for a relationship to go bad. It takes two for a marriage to go bad. You cannot point fingers at the other person. You cannot. To me, that is the most unattractive thing, right? It's not to say that, okay, she didn't have her flaws, but what about you, though? Like, how does that communicate to me that you've learned a lesson, that you can do something differently, right? Because you only can control what's in front of you yourself. You cannot control other people. And so his focus in that on that topic discussion was, oh yeah, she didn't let me. No, this was his wife who mothered his son, right? Because he had a son, he had a daughter. The daughter, I think, was the oldest, and the son was the youngest. He was like, oh, she didn't let me. Not that she didn't let him see his child, but she said that she spoke negative things to his son, like putting negativity in his head, right? From there, I was turned off. I'm just turned off. Because I'm just like, history repeats itself. And I've said this before, that when men talk like that, I've always said this to them. Like, this is just my perspective, that I'm no different. I am no different than other women. It's me being self-aware. We're different, right? But we're no different. So whatever issues that surface with her is going to surface in a relationship with me. Why? Because we're women raised in the same society, contextual society. These issues will manifest. How we move forward from it is not pointing fingers, you, and this and that, or pointing fingers at the system. You can point fingers all day, but at some point we each have to take responsibility, right, for our own mess. And say, okay, what can I do to make things better? When you start talking like that, then that's how you're forward thinking, right? That's how you're taking responsibility, and you're not blaming the other person, attributing blame to forces outside of you, right? That's real alpha male to me. So it shows me how he resolves conflict. How you, because conflict is inevitable, right? It's going to happen in any relationship. That's why I said, like, I am no different. What is going to make things different? You dating a new female, right? I'm a new woman to you, but conflict is going to arise. It may not be the exact same conflict of what y'all used to argue about, but conflict is going to arise, and it teaches me how you approach it. And then he goes like, oh yeah, she's crazy, like she's delusional, she was toxic, she this and that and the other. And then, he went and mentioned the formidable fucking thing ever. This motherfucker said, oh, and she had the black angry woman syndrome. Angry black woman syndrome. Dead that shit, yo. Like, I had to block. And I know he just kept typing. He was just going on, because I could tell, like, he kept spitting fucking statements, right? He's typing all this stuff out, and I keep getting, like, notifications. He sent a new message, because he was, like, in his feelings as he was recalling this past toxic relationship with his fucking baby mama. Like, all of this shit is just coming out at once, and it's stemming from him initiating a conversation, a topic discussion on what is my ideal marriage. But as we talk about that, he's reflecting, he's triggered, right? And so while he was talking and pointing the finger so much at her and saying, oh, she had a lot of baggage, of course, I had to retort and say, listen, we all have baggage. We all have emotional trauma. Every single person. And I can identify what your trauma is and what this person's trauma is. And that person, everybody, I don't care who you are, everyone has experienced some form of trauma. Everybody comes with shit. Everybody has, can't say you don't. And you know what he says? Oh, me. Not me. I don't have baggage. That's a turnoff, yo. And so I'm looking at him, looking at his pictures, right, and listening to his response. And I'm already developing this formulation about who this person is. His character is, like, ever so clear, right? Very narcissistic, self-centered. No insight as whatsoever. No responsibility. And I think sometimes people who look good externally, because he's a motherfucker very fine, very attractive, you think that you're invincible. You think that you're flawless because you look good on the outside, right? But nobody is without flaw. And that, to me, is the worst person to even date. You're not humble. You're not grounded in reality. Your ass way up here because you probably get a lot of compliments. And even before that, he had just mentioned, because he said that he was visiting his mom in the hospital as she was recovering from surgery. And he's like asking me before this topic discussion came up, he wants to get my perspective on interracial dating. And I already knew where it was going. Because I have many interactions, I've done this for so long. It's just like, I'm an expert at fucking dating and getting to know people, right? Especially being a psychologist, like I'm very observant. And you can just create these different profiles of different types of people, right? That's just pretty much essentially what I've learned to come to do. And so he's asking me like, oh, would you date outside your race? What's your thoughts about like dating outside your race? And I'm like, I'm not attracted to white people. Like, why would I be attracted to white people like that? Right? And he laughs. And then he goes, yeah, I feel the same way. I'm pro-black. But then he goes, oh, I must have talked it up because a white girl just walked in, I guess a nurse, just walked in my mom's room. And she's like, oh, aren't you one handsome person, a handsome son? Right? And he's laughing at the statement, right, as he's sharing this experience with me. And I'm just like turned off by that shit too. But it lets me know that this motherfucker got low self-esteem. Now think about that, right? If you're claiming to be Pan-African, pro-black, but you derive a sense of pleasure because you're getting attention from a white person that you, first of all, claim you're unattracted to in the first place, right? Trying to elicit a certain kind of reaction out of me, like that to me is very low vibrational. You're not going to get that kind of reaction because why? I don't give a damn. Right? And this all kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier in terms of, I have very thick skin, and I find it funny even when like I'm at work and a person mentions, oh, like I hope you didn't get offended. Like, yo, I have very thick skin, and you need that to survive in this world that we live in. I just let shit roll off my shoulder and keep it moving. But I'm very, like I said, I'm very observant, and it teaches, like I take account and to see how like people say certain things to try to elicit a certain response, but it reveals much about that person's character, right? Because any person that tries to do things in that way to manipulate a person's emotion, right, or their reaction, you're creating this situation or co-creating this situation and to share it with me to elicit a certain kind of reaction to try to get up, like that doesn't get up under my skin. But all this is happening like sequentially, right? So this experience is happening where he's talking about the white nurse coming in and he's like, oh, I guess I talked it up by asking me about what I did outside my race. And then lo and behold, a white girl comes in and says, oh, aren't you beautiful? He just thought that was just so giggly to talk about, right, for him. It made him, I'm pretty sure it made him feel good inside. That's why he's laughing and sharing it with me. And then he goes to talk about the ideal marriage, and he is triggered, right? He's having this triggered reaction reflecting on his previous marriage. And then he talks about, oh, black women, right, making this generalized statement, black women this, right? Because I said, I think it's very sad that black men and black women have a difficult time loving each other unconditionally. And then he goes making a comparison to say, oh, well, black women this, but other races of women this, that, right? It's the same narrative that you hear from these black conscious leaders. So it speaks to a level of dysfunctionality, right? It speaks to a level of fucking sickness, self-hatred that exists, but yet you think I'm attracted to that shit? It's a turn off. I don't give a fuck how well you speak. Like, he's very well articulate, right? And talking all the right shit, knowing all the knowledge and historical facts, Kemet and Egypt and all of that. Have this political consciousness, this knowledge, but how is it being applied though? Right? It means nothing to me if it's not being applied in a manner that is moving the black community forward. Helping, first of all, move yourself forward individually, right? On an interpersonal level relating to the black woman, let alone on a community level, right? And so I just thought that interaction was interesting. And prior to that, like I said, we had many discourse going back and forth, building. We're talking about Dr. Umar Johnson and many other greats that acts like, who is his influences? We talked about living in the tropics, right? This whole grand plan of how we envision our lives, and not necessarily together, but like, you know, before we even had crossed paths, like how we envision like our future manifesting itself, right? And living in the tropics and just reconnecting with nature and just talking all that good talk. And of course, Dr. Umar Johnson came up with, how can you talk about consciousness and not mention Dr. Umar Johnson? And we're talking about most recently what happened with what's happening with Carmen Nation, right? And Eligio Bishop, right? His tribe, who lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and I just want to get his take on it, right? And this guy on the dating app mentions that he works within the whole HVAC thing, right? So of course I said, well, why you ain't try to help Dr. Umar Johnson? He deals in commercial HVAC. I said, why Johnson? I hate when it fucking breaks up like that. But why didn't you try to get Dr. Umar Johnson the HVAC, right? Like, hook him up. And he makes a joke. Not even serious, right? Which lets me know how serious he is about it. Because he's like, oh yeah, he threatened me. And he said it as a joke, which I knew he was joking. But I'm like, okay, that doesn't answer the question. Like, if you claiming to be so serious about the black community and the movement, and you work in commercialized HVAC, you see this man is struggling, right? But you're not putting in action, right? To me, that annoyed me. And this is like early on in the conversation, and I should have known, like the laugh, the joke that he made about that somehow, because he threatened him. And I think it was like him trying to throw a jab in response to something I had shared with him regarding my conversation with Umar Johnson's father that I had a couple years ago. And now his father was telling me that he had to kind of pull a strategic move to remove himself from the forefront, right, of what was happening between him and his son, given that he had faced a lot of attacks and threats from people, threats against his own personal life, right? And so, you know, he kind of had to create a divide between him and his son. This kind of drive a wedge in their relationship, unfortunately, in the public's eye, perceivably anyway, so that his ass don't fucking get killed. And so I shared that, you know, and then I think he just wanted to make himself feel important in that way, to say, oh, he got threats, but then he was joking, like, I'm just joking, ha ha ha. The reason why he didn't help Dr. Umar Johnson with the HVAC, it's just of immaturity. Now, I'm 38. This guy, I think, is like, what he said on his profile, like 42 years old, but that's very, like, immature. Like, how, it's like people do a good job at articulating themselves and talking a talk, but how are we really applying it? Right? You're not. Just very immature, and I'm just turned off. I'm just completely turned the fuck off, like, right, I had to block this guy. The conversation, the discourse did not go on for that long. It was like a couple days, kind of communicating back and forth, and out of nowhere, like, as he was going on and on and on about his ex-wife, and I get it, yeah, he need a place to vent, but that's what therapy is for. Like, That's not what I'm for. Like, I'm not here to be your fucking therapist and empathize with you and be a sounding board for your frustrations, especially if you claim you don't come with baggage. It's a different story if you honest and you say, yeah, we all got baggage, right? Like, he agreed with me. And it's not about me needing him to agree. It's about being right and being truthful, right? That's what I respect. Have enough fucking insight and self-awareness to know that you and everybody else comes with baggage, and it's clearly being displayed right now in this conversation where she did this and she did that, and I can't see my son, I'm mad at her, and this and the other, and yet you're trying to enter a new relationship and you saying that you just got a divorce, what, a year and a half ago, not even that long ago, but you still healing from this. Like, he's talking about how hurt he was, but then he goes and try to deny and say you don't have baggage. It's not about denying it. It's about how do you navigate it, how to move forward from it, right? And if you are wanting to create a shared experience with a new person, how do you go about doing that? How do we join and merge our two separate worlds together? That's a real mature conversation, right? But all this back and forth, oh, black women, this angry black woman. Nah, what about the black man? You got your own set of fucking issues and insecurities. So it's not about pointing fingers. It's about how can we heal and come together, and that conversation never was had because immature. So it brings it around to the topic of this video. It's just like, guys, I'm open. I'm still open to dating, to marriage. But where is a man that will ever measure up, that has a degree of intellect, self-awareness? You don't have to fucking go to school and have a traditional fucking education, higher education, to have intellect. You just need to know yourself and know the right things to say, because once a person starts talking that ignorant shit and wanting to put the black woman down, especially if you know that, okay, black women, angry black woman syndrome, okay, if you know this is a real thing, which I'm not denying that it is, but why say certain triggering statements, right? Why be insensitive to that experience of a black woman, knowing that your ass is a reflection of a black woman, right? We one and the same, right? So don't try to create this dichotomy between the black man and black woman as if like me versus you, because I'm going to stand for the black woman. I'm a black woman. So that's the issue I have when black men that I come across, whether it's in the context of us getting to build a intimate personal relationship or just in general conversation, you know, with these so-called intellectual fucking debates, men want to get on here and talk about their past experiences with black women or black women in general. Like, no, we're going to have an issue. I would rather not engage in that kind of discourse, and I just pull myself out of it and block, because I feel like it's not productive. If the conversation to me is not productive, I am not going to continue the conversation. What is the point of it? But so yes, I'm very much hopeful that there exists a mature, black, self-aware, sound mind of a man that we could actually build. But am I pressed for it? Because I've been single for a while. And single life, I've said this before, is very comfortable. It's comforting. It's safe. I've created my own world being single. So to the point where it's like, I know that men hate to hear a woman say this, but it's just like, seriously, this is a legit question. What is the need of a man in a woman's life who has established everything for herself? There was a point in time where women, yes, needed men to fucking survive, and they looked up to the idea of marriage and being chosen, being picked, handpicked by a man. Like, my knight in shining armor, my knight in shining armor, he's going to come rescue me from the pits of poverty, the pits of singlehood, and the pits of insecurity of not knowing how I'm going to take care and fend for myself. But if for the past how many years I've been taking care of myself, living independently by my damn self, now that says a lot. I know it doesn't seem like it says a lot, because it's just like, okay, that's what women do, that's what people do, right? They take care of themselves. But just think about that. Putting yourself, like, take some time to really flesh out the idea of being a woman, having a womb, right? A woman's femininity, softness, right? Existing in a world that is safe, but it's dangerous at the same time, right? And violent, many threats surrounding, and being a woman, right? Women and men are biologically different. We're physically different, right? But still having to fend for oneself as a woman, as a man would, right? If there is a threat in my environment. And not just me, but speaking for other women too. When a woman lives like that, day in and day out, doing things for herself, the things that perhaps if a man was present, he would be doing, right? Taking out trash. When I moved into my place, right, I had to coordinate the movers, right, and getting them set up and bringing all my shit in, right, and unloading the boxes, and some of the work I was doing, right, the work that a man would be doing. I can give so many examples. And then when a woman has done this for so long, the fuck she need a man for? I mean, she kind of develops this sense, not to say, okay, it's healthy, but it is adaptive. And just imagine, like, I'm a woman with no children. Imagine a woman with children. If she's doing all of what I've just described, protecting herself, fending for herself, taking care of herself, working, getting money, paying the bills, living in New York City, right? Bills ain't cheap. But imagine doing all of that with children and no man around, and you've not only done it for, let's say, 3 months, 6 months, you're doing it for years on end, back to back. It's just like a man really have to show up and show the hell out to really get her attention, because it's just like she's done it for so long by herself, okay? By myself. Right? You come up as a man, think about this, like, you gotta really immerse yourself, that's why I think men who really have a good relationship with their mother, healthy, or a sister, like feminine energy, they can really see it, but you can't quite really grasp the full depth of the have a degree of understanding, full understanding of what it's truly like, unless you're a woman, essentially, right? Putting yourself in a woman's shoes. But to see that as a man coming along and be like, oh, okay, 50-50, and barely fucking scraping up pennies to want to pay for the first date. I mean, just think about that. If she's doing all of this by herself, and for me, like, I treat myself nice, take myself out to really fine restaurants. I eat well. You hear me? Oh my gosh. Maybe I can pause. I have my colleague calling me. I'm good. Give me a second, guys.